afternoon. I'm going to announce the results of the second ballot in the leadership election. As yesterday, I'll read the name of the candidate and the number of votes cast in each case. First of all, 356 votes were cast out of a possible 358. The numbers are as follows: Badenoch, 49, Braverman, 27, Mordaunt, 83, Sunak, 101, Truss, 64, Tugendhat, 32. Therefore, under the rules, Suella Braverman is eliminated from the contest, and the others are able to go forward to a further ballot on Monday. Thank you.
There you go. The results are in. The person who has been eliminated is Suella Braverman. Her vote actually going down from 32 in the first ballot to 27 today. You can see there Rishi Sunak clearing the 100 mark on 101. Penny Mordaunt in second place again on 83. Liz Truss on 64. Kemi Badenoch on 49, increasing her vote share there. And you can see there Tom Tugendhat just squeaking through on 32, his vote number going down to. Let's go to our political editor, Beth Rigby. What do you make of the results, Beth?
Well, that's an interesting set of results. Look, Braverman is out, so that is one candidate out, and she dropped votes. She went back 5. And Tom Tugendhat, he is still in there, but he's also lost votes. And you have to ask yourself, at this point, does Tom Tugendhat decide to fold? Now, sources around him insisted to me that that had not been a conversation that he was very keen to go into any live TV debates if he could. But let's see what Tom Tugendhat does. He's losing support. That is not where you want to be. But look at the main runners. Rishi Sunak has got over 100. He now is only 19 votes away from getting to that magic 120 figure, and he's put on 13 votes. So he's taken a chunk of that 43 that's split. Maybe not as much as he might have wanted, but anyway, look, he's over the 100 mark. What's interesting with Morton is she's put on another, let me try and do the math, 16 votes. So she'll be happy with that. I think she's still in second place. She's gone up to the mid-80s or the low 80s. And Truss, I think what you can see there, she's put on 14 votes. She's still quite clearly trailing Mordaunt, not managing to close the gap. But isn't it interesting, Sophie, that Braverman lost 5 votes? And it seems to me that, as Sam was talking about earlier, that Suella Braverman, some of those candidates may be moving to try and bolster Liz Truss, but she's still clearly in third place. I mean, I think from those results, we have to see where the rest of those votes go. You would think that they would perhaps lean towards a Truss candidate rather than a Mordaunt candidate, given that Penny Mordaunt, whilst a conviction Brexiteer, is more progressively liberal on the sort of liberal conservative wing of the party when it comes to social policy. So I'm not sure Braverman supporters would think that Penny Mordaunt is their woman. But Mordaunt will be pleased with that. Sunak will be relieved to get over 100. And Truss there, she really does have to make up some ground. Because looking at those numbers, when we talk about whether Rishi Sunak can lend votes in order to block other people, you've got to be really comfortably over the 120 mark to risk in the later rounds lending votes out. I would say from that, Liz Truss looking in a bit of trouble as Penny Mordaunt becomes, after 2 rounds, the clear second favourite to Sunak.
Really interesting to see, as you say, Beth, there, the change in numbers compared to yesterday, really, I think, showing how the momentum is changing. Penny Mordaunt, actually the candidate putting on the most votes, she gained 16. Liz Truss up 14, Rishi Sunak up 13. So you can see where the votes are going. And as you were saying there, Beth, it feels like momentum is everything, with both Suella Braverman and Tom Tugendhat actually losing votes. I wonder, as the rounds progress, can you see Liz Truss potentially picking up more votes if you think that perhaps Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch could be the next 2 candidates to be eliminated, both people from the right of the party?
Yeah, Sophie, I do. And actually, let's talk a bit about Kemi Badenoch, because she is a former minister. But look at that. She's come in with 49 votes. She's going to be extremely pleased with that performance. She, in a way, has become another dark horse in the race on the right of the party, winning the patronage, the support of Michael Gove, a key backer for her. And she's come in at 49 in fourth place. But I guess the question is, as this goes along, do Badenoch backers and do Braverman backers go to Truss, and can she lift her numbers up? But they might also break for Rishi Sunak, because many people will think, MPs will now think, my first choice is out, I'm going to go for my second preference. Who is the one that's most likely to win? Who is the one that might put me back in their cabinet or might give me a job in government? And they could also break for Sunak. He, of that 43 votes that were going spare after Zahawi and Hunt were knocked out, Sunak's picked up 14 votes. He's got over 100. Truss has picked up 14 votes from the last round, but I imagine that she might have picked up some of those Braverman votes. And as for Tom Tugendhat, could it be as well that some of those back in Tom Tugendhat are now pushing into the Mordaunt column? She as well describes herself as a one-nation conservative whilst also being a conviction Brexiteer. Are they trying to move his column to Mordaunt so she could pick up those votes? I mean, I think the main takeaway in terms of how it's breaking down is it's going to be very tight, potentially between Mordaunt and Truss, providing that Truss can pick up the lion's share of those Badenoch votes, but it could be that they split to Rishi Sunak as well. It's really unpredictable.
Yeah, as you were saying, Beth, unlike the election with Boris Johnson, unlike the election with Theresa May, it really feels like this race is very difficult to call. We were discussing before we got the result that it does look like Rishi Sunak is the most likely candidate to be on the final two, which will then, of course, be put to party members. Do you think the result today is another indication that he does look like he's on track to reach that final two?
Team now, you've got over 100. He's now in striking distance of the magic 120. He's consistently been in the lead, but it's not a load of clear blue water between him and other candidates in the way that with Boris Johnson was just streaks ahead of the others back in 2019. That is not the case for Sunak. But, you know, he is on 101. He's the only one to break the three-digit mark. He is tapping on potentially that 120. He will surely be confident within his team that between Badenoch, Braverman and Tugendhat, he can pick up enough other supporters. There's lots of questions as well whether Michael Gove, once Kemi Badenoch does fall out of the race, which unless there is a massive shock, she surely will at the final rounds, whether Michael Gove moves his support to Rishi Sunak as well, with other senior cabinet ministers falling in behind Rishi Sunak. So as far as Rishi Sunak's concerned, there was an expectation or quiet confidence in his team yesterday after the first round that he would make it to the final two. There's nothing in those numbers that would make them panic yet. But if you were Liz Truss, you might be getting quite worried that you could be knocked out of this race. You've got to see what happens with those Badenoch numbers. And as I said, one reason she could be carried through is not on the back of just her vote, but on the back of Rishi Sunak, who would probably rather meet her in the final hustings, the final two, than Mordaunt, whether he might lend votes to try and block Truss. But on those figures at the moment, unless something radically changes and he suddenly puts on 60, 70 parliamentary votes, he's not going to be in a position to lend many votes. So it's going to be a straight fight at the moment for the final two. But it can all change. I think we don't have any votes now until next week. So there's going to be a lot of action over this weekend as those still in the running try and win over other supporters. Let's see what Tom Tugendhat does as well, because, as I said, he is losing momentum. He has dropped 5 votes? Will he fold the cards now, or will he decide that actually I quite fancy the platform of having some leaders' debates where I can go toe-to-toe with some of my colleagues? I mean, the problem Tom Tugendhat has in all of this race, as you know, Sophie, is that he was not put into Boris Johnson's cabinet. He has always been an opponent of Boris Johnson, and it means that he just does not have the cabinet experience that you would perhaps want to see if you're an MP from a candidate that doesn't want to just run the Conservative Party but needs to run the country ahead of another general election. So what will Tom Tugendhat do? I'm looking to see what he does now. I'm sure he's going to have to put a statement out one way or the other quite soon, given that he's dropped 5 votes. Braverman is out, having dropped 5 votes also.
Thank you very much for your analysis there, Beth. And as Beth was just saying, it's going to be a really fierce weekend of campaigning ahead of the next ballot, which is due on Monday, including, of course, those TV debates. Well, joining us now to get a bit more reaction to the second ballot results is the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, Rishi Sunak supporter.
Yep.
What do you make of today's results?
Well, clearly this is a big vote of confidence in Rishi Sunak, a clear winner, and with over 100 colleagues backing him. There's a good reason for that, because he's proved to be the candidate with the strong, clear economic plan to get us through difficult times, and he's also the candidate who can most clearly beat Keir Starmer and protect this country from Starmer and Nicola Sturgeon ripping it up in the future. So, you know, on the big things that really matter, Rishi is ahead, and that's reflected in the results of the poll today.
You say he's ahead. He clearly is ahead,
Yeah.
clearing the 100 vote mark. But is he the candidate with momentum? It was Penny Morton who picked up most votes today. She perhaps surprised people with her showing in the first ballot. There's been polling suggesting that she is miles ahead in terms of popularity with Conservative Party members. Is she perhaps the one who's coming up on the inside track?
Well, there have been polls of party members saying Rishi's ahead. There have been polls saying that Penny's ahead. And we've
The
got
most recent polling shows Penny's ahead.
Well, these polls are notoriously difficult with at targeting the Tory members in terms of the polling. What matters is the debate that we'll no doubt have over the next 6 weeks, with highly likely that Rishi will get through now, and whether it's Penny or Liz or Kemi or Tom who are left in the race, we'll go out and have that big debate out in the country, and the candidates will be tested and challenged. And one of the things about Rishi is that he has been tested and challenged in possibly the most difficult circumstances that the country has faced in peacetime history. You know, I worked with him on that, sat next to him through it, and he's got the experience. So, you know, I know that he's got that time that he's spent at the forefront, right in the heat of these huge debates. So, you know, whether it's having the plan or being able to beat Keir Starmer, I think Rishi's the lead.
I mean, you obviously work closely with Rishi Sunak, but other cabinet colleagues have got a bit of a different view of it. I think Jacob Rees-Mogg describes him as a socialist chancellor.
Well, of course, Rishi brought in furlough and saved literally millions of jobs, and I think that's one of the reasons that he is ahead when it comes to the public, and one of the reasons that he's more popular than Keir Starmer, unlike all the other candidates, is because the public do recognise the extraordinary lengths he went to protect people's lives and livelihoods during the pandemic. But of course, it's about plans for the future, and Rishi's set out a credible economic plan, firstly dealing with inflation, getting growth going, which is critical, and then cutting taxes. It's a responsible, credible plan on the economy, and I think that's why the public increasingly are warming to Rishi Sunak.
The public, but it's Conservative Party members, isn't it? Who make
Yeah, but there's a long way to go in that debate.
It is a long way.
We're about 4 days in so far.
No, it is a long way to go, but if you look at the YouGov poll, he basically loses pretty much every final runoff with his rivals. Steve Baker was there saying that whoever goes up against Rishi Sunak in the final two is going to win among Conservative Party members.
Well, if you don't support Rishi, you would say that, wouldn't you? What matters is the debate that we're going to have, no doubt, in the country. I think it's highly likely that Rishi's name will be on that ballot paper. I certainly hope it will. And
who else do you think will be on the ballot paper?
I don't know. There's 4 others, and you know, it's
a 3-horse race, really, though, right?
No, there's 4 others. It's a 5-horse race now. It was 6 this morning. So, that's the purpose of this. I don't think you should rule anybody out. But what is clear is that there's a very strong vote of confidence in Rishi. Over 100 of my colleagues, in fact, plus me, 101 in total, colleagues backing Rishi. And the reason is because he's got the economic plan and he's the one that polling consistently shows can beat Keir Starmer. And winning the next election is incredibly important for my party.
You talk a lot about Rishi Sunak's economic plan.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about the tax promises that are being thrown around by some of the other candidates and how they're going to be funded? Is this realistic economics?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that we put forward as a party a responsible, credible economic plan. People look to us, yes, of course, to get the burden of tax down, but first and foremost to make sure that the economy is strong and that we have responsible policy. That is the first task of a Conservative government. With inflation running at 10%, that is incredibly important, even more important. And we haven't had inflation at these levels for a generation. So we've got to deal with inflation. Then we can get on to cutting tax. I think that's the responsible and the right approach. And by the way, I think it's also the approach that will appeal to Conservative Party members as well as the general public.
Well, not long to find out. Matt Hancock, thank you very much for being on Sky News today. Matt Hancock there talking about his support for Rishi Sunak, who topped the poll today. We have just got a Twitter statement that's been come through from Tom Tugendhat, who of course did manage to get over the line today with more votes than Suella Braverman, but his votes went down. He got 32 this time compared to 37 last time, so he actually lost 5 votes. He's tweeted though to say the campaign for a clean start continues. Thank you to all my friends and colleagues who have pledged their support. We need trust back in our politics. I will be putting my vision for Britain forward to the public at the TV debates next week. So interesting there from Tom Tugendhat. Some speculation that he may have decided to step aside after the disappointing showing today. But no, he is decided to remain in the contest in order to keep on going with that fight. Well, we're joined now by Simon Clarke, who is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He is somebody who is backing Liz Truss.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to back Liz Truss over the president that you worked with, Rishi Sunak?
I'm a huge admirer of Liz. I backed her predominantly because of her economic strategy, which I think is pro-growth, pro-enterprise, low tax, what we need to see at a time when, crucially, we've got to galvanise growth if we're going to protect the public finances and look after people at what is a really challenging moment in the world economy.
So it's interesting that you chose the economic plan of someone that you haven't worked with in the Treasury.
Well, I've worked very closely with all my colleagues across government over the course of the last year, and Liz is, for me, the standout candidate to be our next leader and Prime Minister because of her long record in government, her ability to draw support from across this party, but crucially, as I say, because I think she has the right plan for the country.
Do you think, is this a judgment at all on Rishi Sunak's plan for the economy? The fact were you frustrated at times about...
Well, I think we were all frustrated by some of the choices in terms of tax. Obviously, those are private discussions within government when you're bound by collective responsibility, but I'm clear that I favour a low-tax pro-enterprise economy, and I think Liz has the right approach on that. So for me, this is a policy decision, and one which I think many colleagues and many Conservative members will support. But look, there are good candidates in this race. I think it's vitally important we respect that, but you can legitimately disagree.
You were frustrated at times then with Rishi Sunak's policy on tax.
Well,
is that fair to say?
I stand by the Chancellor's view on the ability to have tax cuts against our current spending plans, but those are no longer going to be sacrosanct because we're going to have a new Prime Minister and a new policy, and Liz is clear she will have a spending review on day one, set out different choices on the underlying spending plans of the government, which creates obviously different headroom for action on tax.
I'm interested to know your thoughts on another candidate as well, Penny Morton. She, in some ways, is a candidate with momentum. She put on the most amount of votes today of all the candidates. Lord Frost, who obviously was part of the Brexit negotiations, has spoken out to say that he has concerns over her. He said that he had to ask Boris Johnson to actually move her off the Brexit negotiations, and she wasn't capable of doing the job. You then tweeted to say that the warning is a very serious one. Conservatives and, far more importantly, our country need a leader candidate who is tested and ready.
I stand by that. That's absolutely my view. And David has worked very closely with a number of the colleagues who are standing in this race, and I think we have to listen to what he's saying, because in the end, this is about choosing not just the next leader of the Conservative Party, but our next Prime Minister. And it is telling, I think, where current members of the government are placing their support. And I think, that is reflected in David's comments, but also reflected in a number of very senior ministers' decisions about who to support in this race. They are not backing Miss Morton.
Are you worried that she's basically not ready for the job, then?
Well, I think it is I think it is for colleagues to make their own minds up. I'm not here to lecture, but David Frost is a very senior figure in Conservative politics. He's worked very closely with, as I say, all the major players in this race. He's made his views known. I think that is a material factor.
How concerned are you about Liz Truss's performance so far?
Sorry, over?
About Liz Truss's performance so far? She's in third place.
I have every confidence in Liz. I think we're in a very good position in this race relative to where we might expect to be at this point. Obviously, now that Ms Braverman is going out of the race, there will be an opportunity for us to speak to a number of people who share Liz's views on the European question.
So you feel that actually Liz Truss's numbers may tick up?
I hope so. I very much hope so. We'll be having those conversations over the days ahead.
So you are going to be trying to speak to Suella Braverman?
We certainly will be, but obviously we have to respect her decision and give her the time and space that she needs.
Have you had any conversations with her campaign team?
Obviously we continue to have conversations with people right across the party, but I'm sure those will intensify over the days ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for being on the programme. Simon Clark there speaking to us. Interesting, his comments saying that there were frustrations about the level of tax that he had when he was working in the Treasury alongside Rishi Sunak. And also, of course, we have just seen a tweet coming through from Rishi Sunak. Now, he received the highest number of votes in the second leadership ballot. He said, "I'm incredibly grateful for the continued support from my colleagues and the wider public. I am prepared to give everything I have in service to our nation. Together, we can restore trust, rebuild our economy, and reunite the country." Well, we're joined now by our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, who's with us now. Sam, I just want a few reflections on that interview with Simon Clark, Liz Truss supporter. I was quite struck, I guess, by the criticism of Penny Morton, who he said he agreed with Lord Frost. There were concerns about whether she's tested, but also Rishi Sunak and the frustrations that he was airing about someone he worked closely with regards to tax.
It's one thing for the former Brexit negotiator Lord Frost to try and, as it were, really take out Penny Morton on the basis of them working together and his views about how she would govern the country. But it's quite something else to watch what Simon Clark, who was a member of the cabinet, just did, standing by his comments basically suggesting that she wouldn't have the necessary experience to run the United Kingdom. That is exactly the kind of blue on blue that after this leadership contest is going to be so difficult to put back in the box. That's the kind of fissure that does lasting damage here. Now, it reflects a political reality that we're seeing this morning and playing out in the numbers, which is concern amongst those supporting Liz Truss that suddenly there was a new insurgent in the form of Penny Morton. And so that's why there's been quite a concerted campaign against her through the last few hours. Now, what we've seen in the numbers today is you've seen again Penny Morton do well, and again Liz Truss seeing a step change up, but perhaps not as big as it would be. But here's where the really difficult task starts, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Because if you talk to supporters of all the camps behind the scenes, what they're saying is that there is basically a sort of a question. Do the Brexiteers currently backing Suella Braverman, who's just gone out, and Kemi Badenoch, who hasn't? Suella obviously cannot win. Even I don't think Kemi Badenoch doesn't seem to stand a very good chance at this point. Do most of the supporters of both those two leadership candidates end up tucking behind Liz Truss, which would take her up to post 120 into the last two? Is she suddenly going to see a surge after this difficult round? And this is where there's a debate. Supporters of Liz Truss say the answer to that is no, is yes. Supporters of Penny Morton say no. People like David Davis, who you're allowed to talk to.
Well, there you go. Let's talk now, shall we, to David Davis, who is a high-profile backer of Penny Morton. I just want to talk to you about some of the incoming fire we've seen around Penny Morton. Lord Frost, Brexit negotiator, saying that he had
which team's he on?
He said
Which team's he on?
He said that he had to ask Boris Johnson to move Penny Morton because she wasn't capable of doing the job. And then we just heard just then from Simon Clarke. I know you'll ask what team is he on. He's back in Liz Truss.
Yeah.
He said that he's got concerns over someone untested being in that job.
Untested being in the job Prime Minister.
Yes.
I mean, and Liz Truss is tested in that context. Well, all right, let's leave that as hanging. Your viewers can make their own judgments. I suggest they look at each of the launches and see which one they think's got the character, the command, the courage. All right. But to come back to today and the actual news, we've had the biggest increase in the votes so far. We're further ahead of Truss now than we were before. We're a little bit closer to Sunak. So it's a good day.
Do you think that that's why you're seeing some of the friendly fire, shall we say?
Well, yes, of course. I wouldn't describe it as friendly fire.
How would you describe it?
My comment when I saw it earlier was, right, it's absolutely clockwork. You get to the point that somebody gets ahead and looks to be the real challenger, and then the black ops start, the incoming fire starts. So what? I know Penny. I know her better than some of the people who've been talking. I've worked with her for longer. She's brave, she's clear in her thinking, she's competent, she covers the territory well, she knows her subject. That's the Penny I know. That's why she's good, that's why she's ready for this job. And anybody who watched her yesterday didn't see a fancy PR operation. They saw the character of the candidate come through. I suggest your viewers watch that.
Who do you think is going to be in the final two then? We've had 2 rounds of voting now.
As I said to you, I think yesterday, it's always impossible to forecast these, but gradually both Mr. Sunak and Penny are pulling ahead. Gradually, it's only one. It's only 1 or 2 ahead of Liz Truss. Well, she got extra. We got 16 extra votes. She got 14. So we put, as I said, it's a slow movement apart. Now, the next couple of moves are more difficult to forecast because you've got Braverman and you've got probably Tom Tugendhat at some point will go out. Now, how they'll go, it's very easy to think in blocks, but they're about as reliable. Forecasting in blocks is about as reliable as forecasting in Treasury forecasts. They're never ever right. And the simple truth is that we don't really know. There'll be a battle over their votes. And what I think is likely to happen now is the argument's going to turn to who can run the country, which is what Simon's been talking about, and I'm clear on that, but also who can win an election for the Conservatives, particularly in the red wall seats. And only an hour or so ago, there was a big focus group exercise come out. It showed the only one of the candidates that beat Starmer in the red wall seats is Penny Morton. The others are easily beaten. Penny Morton easily wins.
Okay, I haven't seen that, so I can't comment on it, but we'll take your word for it. I'm interested to get a bit of your sense, because you have done this before, right? You've run in a leadership contest before. You were beaten by the insurgent, if you like, David Cameron.
Well, it wasn't really an insurgent, it was the establishment, but never mind.
But actually it ended up, in some ways, you were the kind of established candidate in that race. Do you feel that...
Well, I was the winning one in the beginning. Oops, sorry.
Exactly, and then the votes fell in a different way. Do you think that shows, perhaps, what could happen with Rishi Sunak and Penny Morton?
Well, what you saw there, I mean, actually, it's a sort of reverse of where we are. I had 60% or thereabouts of the parliamentary votes, but he won easily in the countryside. I think when we get to the end of this, it's likely to be both of them, both Rishi and Penny, quite close to each other in parliamentary votes. But I think she'll win easily in the party in the country. Or at least that's what the polling yesterday and the day before, 2 sets of polls showed. But this is a debate. This is a discussion about policy. It's about the future of the country. It's about the future of the Tory party. And these things can swing around. But issues like polls that we saw yesterday, the focus group today, will all have an impact on the thinking of MPs. MPs want to do well for their country, but they also want to win their seats.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Nothing like the MPs' desire to hang on to their own seats. So, David Davis, thank you very much for coming.
I'm here dressed as well.
On the programme. A bit more casual for Kay Bailey earlier.
Apparently we went viral.
Yeah, well, you smiled up with a tie for us in the afternoon.
In uniform.
So, thank you very much. David Davis there. Well, let's bring Sam Coates back in there now. David Davis trying to laugh off some of the he said he wouldn't describe it as friendly fire coming from some of the other camps.
That's right, but it does sting, and I think that Penny Morton has to prove one thing to her colleagues, which is that she does have both the experience and the depth to be Prime Minister. Now, she was actually a Secretary of State for quite a long time, both at international development and for a slightly shorter time at defence. So it's not that she's got no record here at all. Rishi Sunak doesn't actually have a huge amount of time, although he was Chancellor at an absolutely critical moment. But I think the real question for Penny Mordaunt is just what happens to all those different groups of votes. David Davis just told you that Tory MPs don't operate in a bloc. No, that's true, but the supporters of Suella Braverman have by and large been members of the same ERG, European Research Group, Hard Brexiteers Group, and they are not massive fans of Penny Mordaunt. So you can see that group actually mostly moving across to Liz Truss. We're still unsure who's going to be in the last two. Might be Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, might be Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, but might be Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss.
It really is very, very difficult to call. Sam Cates, thank you very much for your analysis. Sam there just talking about how he expects the supporters of Suella Braverman to break. She, of course, was eliminated from the contest today, so it'll be interesting to see where her support goes in the next round. We can speak now to somebody who's always got his finger on the pulse of where the backbenchers are thinking. Mark Harper, supporter of Rishi Sunak. Where do you think Suella Braverman's supporters are going to go?
Well, look, we're obviously making the case to her supporters about why they should back Rishi. I think I was picking up from the discussion what David Davis said was right. Colleagues don't move as a bloc. You can't assume that everybody's going to move in one go. I was pleased with that result for Rishi. There were 43 votes on the table from the candidates who got knocked out, and he picked up a bigger share of them than he picked up from the parliamentary party in the previous ballot. So I'm very pleased with that. So I think we'll continue making the argument about the fact that he's the right person to set out our economic solutions that we need, the right person to restore trust, and the right person to bring the country together, and most importantly for Conservative MPs, the right person to win the next general election and beat the Labour Party.
You say that he picked up a bigger share than last time, and that's one way of cutting the figures, but Penny Mordaunt picked up the most votes, didn't she?
Yeah, but he's also the front runner. So, you know, he picked up the biggest share last time. He picked up a bigger share of the votes that were available, and he's gone over 100. So I'm very pleased with that. There's still 5 candidates in the race. So when you've got a lot of candidates in the race, you know, it's going to take a little while for it to shake up. But he's still in first place by some margin, and I'm very pleased with that. We'll continue making our arguments as we head to the next ballot on Monday.
He's the front runner. Who do you think is his biggest rival, looking at the results so far?
Well, I don't know. It'll be up to Conservative MPs. Whoever is, if he's successfully in the final, which I obviously very much hope, he will debate with the issues with whoever the other person is, take his case to members in the country, and I very much hope he'll persuade them, confident he'll persuade them. But we're not complacent. Optimistic but not complacent, and we look forward to taking those arguments to Conservative MPs next week. I want to talk to you a little bit about the tone of the debate. Sure.
We spoke to Simon Clarke earlier, who said that he was frustrated with Rishi Sunak in the Treasury when he worked with him quite closely because of the tax burden. Do you share some of those frustrations?
Well, look, first of all, I think it's helpful if we don't personalise things. So Rishi's been very clear he wants to run a respectful campaign. Debate the issues with colleagues, but we won't be getting involved in personal stuff.
His record on tax,
but in terms of the issues,
right?
yes, and I think you've got to remember we had a once in a 300. Rishi's been clear he's going to cut taxes. It's a when, not an if. But we just had a 1 in a 300-year pandemic. We spent £400 billion of taxpayers' money to protect millions of jobs, thousands of businesses. That's why we came out of the pandemic with the lowest rate of unemployment for years, not with the scarring to people's lives and opportunities that people had thought would happen.
He hasn't committed to the same tax cuts as other candidates.
No, and I'm very pleased he hasn't, because frankly, if you do unfunded tax cuts now, the danger is that you fuel inflation, and that's a particularly big impact on poorer people. And if you have unfunded tax cuts and you have no way of paying for them, how are you going to pay for your public services? So he's been clear, you want to cut taxes, but you've got to cut taxes when you can afford it. And I don't think unfunded tax cuts are realistic, particularly some people are promising at the same time to have massive increases in public expenditure, and it isn't credible. And as he said in his video and as his launch, he's not going to be telling people fairy tales. He's going to be straight with people, tell them what they need to know, not what they want to hear.
So do you think other candidates are telling fairy tales?
Well, I think people have got to be straightforward about how they're going to pay for things. If you say you're going to cut taxes and you're going to increase spending, you've got to be honest with me. Are you just going to borrow loads of money and risk putting up interest rates, fueling inflation, which will put up people's mortgages and damage the cost of living? Or do you have a plan to pay for it? So if someone says they're going to cut taxes, ask them how they're going to pay for it. If they've got a great plan, fine. But I haven't heard great plans being set out by people that say they're going to cut taxes.
We've got the next ballot on Monday. There are debates scheduled, leadership debates scheduled, including on Sky News, hosted by Kay Burley. Would you like to see Rishi Sunak take part?
Well, my understanding is, and forgive me if I've got this wrong, but the broadcaster set up the debates without any discussion with the candidates. Rishi will have a team of people who will be negotiating with the broadcasters about all of the rules and all of those kinds of things.
It'd be great for him to get the chance to sit at his pitch, though, right?
And I'm not going to negotiate live on Sky with you now. His team will be doing that with your team, and I'm sure they'll all reach a sensible arrangement that everybody's happy with.
Okay, and then just finally, we have seen the frontrunners under some friendly or unfriendly fire. Rishi Sunak talking about tax stuff. Penny Morton as well, with Lord Frost coming out with the extraordinary comments, effectively saying she had to be moved because she was incapable. Are you worried about the tone of the debate?
I am a bit. Rishi was clear. Respectful campaign, focus on the issues. Colleagues have got to remember, 5th of September we have a new leader, 6th of September we have a new Prime Minister. Every Conservative needs to rally behind them. So we've got to be careful that we don't say things now that you can't unsay. So we're all colleagues, and this could be such an opportunity for the Conservative Party to have an entire summer where your profession is completely focused on the Conservative Party and the debates we're having, and I want the public to look at us and think there's smart, talented people there, all of them talented, with loads of ideas about how to take our country forward, but done in a positive, respectful way. And we're being very clear with Conservative MPs. We're not playing silly games. Conservative MPs that are supporting Rishi, we want them to vote for Rishi. We're not doing any games. Our whipping operations run by my former whip, Mel Stride, very respected colleague, very straightforward. Mel Stride is running the whipping operation, very straightforward, and we're asking people who support Rishi to vote for him. And I think that's the tone that we want to strike. And I think, frankly, that's the tone the country want to see. We've got a load of real challenges out there, and I think they want people dealing with them in a grown-up, serious way.
Okay, Mark Harper, thank you very much for being on the programme. Mark Harper there. Well, let's take a moment, shall we, and recap on exactly where we are after the second ballot. Suella Braverman was knocked out today with just 27 votes, actually going down from the 32 she got last time round. And that means that there are currently 5 candidates still in. Rishi Sunak topped the poll with 101 votes. Penny Morton was second with 83. She put on the most votes compared to last time. Liz Truss on 64, Kemi Badenoch on 49, and Tom Tugendhat following up in 5th place with 32 votes. Well, joining us now is the International Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who is supporting Tom Tugendhat.
Hi.
Disappointing. You went down from last time.
So I'm really thrilled that Tom is through to the last 5, because now we're into TV debates, the opportunity to shine and indeed to debate with all our excellent colleagues, the opportunity to test those different policy positions that colleagues have taken, the opportunity to demonstrate both his experience, his quick wit, indeed his humour, and the depth of conviction that he has for his policy agenda for the country when he becomes Prime Minister.
So, if you're singing his praises, you're saying he's got the wit and enthusiasm. Why has he actually dropped MPs there in the last 24 hours when he's been out doing interviews and doing campaign events?
So, as we know, this is a very strange and rather brutal way of doing things that we have in the Conservative Party, and colleagues move their votes around a lot through the course. We'll see, I'm sure, more of that next week in the next stages of votes. And what we wanted to make sure was that Tom had enough to get through, which he has. Colleagues will continue to listen to those arguments and the votes on Monday. I hope that the debates over the weekend will help colleagues. Importantly, at this point now, we're starting with the TV debates to talk to our party members, those who will be the next round of voting once we have sent 2 candidates to them, and of course the wider electorate who will have this candidate selected as their Prime Minister until the next general election at least. So it's really important that they have a chance to do that. Certainly my party members have already not been shy in sharing their thoughts as the process has gone through this week. The opportunity for them to see our candidates and to see Tom shine over the weekend will be an important one, and we will all, as MPs, be hearing from our party members, and indeed, I have no doubt at all, from our wider constituents about who they think would be the best choice.
Tom Tugendhat put out statements where he said that he is pleased to be through and he's going to keep fighting. Did he consider folding? I mean, he's not going to win, is he? He went down on last time.
No, he hasn't considered folding because he believes that the clean start agenda that he brings and indeed the detailed policy positions he takes are ones which need more airtime, and he wants to continue to make that case for those. I hope very much that he goes all the way, but if he doesn't, those issues will have been put firmly on the table. We will continue to champion those, from important things like increasing defence spending to thinking about how we manage the energy crisis, support the cost of living crisis, and ensure that the UK and the Union is as strong as it can be. He's absolutely passionate about ensuring that things like the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill go through because Northern Ireland is an integral part of the UK. So that commitment that he will challenge, no doubt, his other colleagues to over the TV debates will be an opportunity to embed what he considers to be the most important policies we should drive forwards.
Has your phone been ringing from other camps trying to pick up your support in future rounds?
I tend to keep my phone on silent, it's easier.
OK, that's a nice way of sidestepping that question, I think. I want to ask you a bit as well about the tone of the debate. I spoke to Simon Clarke earlier, who said that he stands by his comments about Lord Frost's concerns over Penny Morton, that she's untested, that there is this talk that she had to be moved because she was incapable after Lord Frost complained to the Prime Minister. We've also heard from him that he had frustrations over Rishi Sunak's policies on tax. What do you make of his remarks?
So the nature of our politics is that we have collective responsibility in the Cabinet and decisions made in every policy area, including the ones that Rishi as Chancellor made, are ones that we commit to in a collective way. It doesn't mean we necessarily all agree on everything within Cabinet, and we share those issues, and the Prime Minister gives the lead and the direction at the end of the day on what we're going to do. And that is something that we should all and always stand by, because it is a good and solid way to provide good government. Lord Frost gave his opinions very bluntly. I agree with you, and other colleagues who will also have worked with all the candidates will have their own opinions. These, no doubt, make them reach their own decisions on who they want to support.
The untested point is important, though, would you say? This is not just an audition for the leader of the Conservative Party, for an opposition leader. This is an audition to go straight into number 10. Is it not a risk to choose a relatively untested candidate such as Tom Tugendhat, or potentially someone like Kevin Badenoch or Penny Morton?
So I think Tom would make a great Prime Minister because he is not untested in leadership at all. He has led and built, in fact, governments in some of the hardest environments on earth. He brought together warring warlords in Afghanistan who had been unable to work together for decades, and built one of the strongest governance systems that they'd seen in a long time, which withstood pretty much everything else. He has led here in the House of Commons as the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. He has driven policy change through government from that position. I have no doubt at all that his ability to set the agenda, to lead, to provide the direction, and have the intellectual capacity to really get over the top. I mean, it's a hugely busy, big, complex job. You're making decisions, every minute of the day. Tom is absolutely up for that, and his military training certainly gives him the capacity to work at 100 miles an hour. I think that's really important.
Okay. Just finally, while we have you, who do you think has got the momentum in the race?
Genuinely, I think it's hard to tell at the moment because we're seeing everyone sitting now in an even place, and I think the debates will bring out those who've got the real energy and the skill and indeed the passion to drive forwards.
Anne-Marie Trevelyan there, sticking very much to the line on Tom Tugendhat. Thank you indeed. Well, it has been a very, very interesting day. We have seen the second result of the Conservative Party leadership ballot. The people who have been putting on votes, showing momentum, Rishi Sunak, he crossed that 100 MP line. Penny Morton put on the most votes. She's now on 83 in second place. Liz Truss on 64. Kemi Badenoch putting on votes on 49, a relatively unknown candidate who is having a strong campaign so far. Tom Tugendhat, though, dropped votes. He dropped 5 votes on last time, but he still made it through. And Suella Braverman, too, dropping 5 votes to make it 27, and that means she is now eliminated. Let's talk now to our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, shall we? So we have a breather now, don't we, after the roller coaster of ballots the last 2 days. The next ballot's on Monday. How important do you think the weekend's going to be?
I mean, obviously it's going to be immensely important, but I think it's this sudden change of tempo of the race that's going to matter a great deal. One of the things that Tory MPs have been reflecting is that in many ways they've got this contest the wrong way round, because the bit to study a large number of candidates is happening in a really, really short time frame. We had 8 candidates just, barely more than 48 hours ago, and now we're down to the last 5, and then again, so we've got rid of and done initial assessments on all of them in that very short time frame. Now there will be 3 days breather to go through where people think the final 2 should come from. And if you look at the numbers, some things are quite striking. The hurdle, where you need to get to if you are a contestant, if you look at the screen, where you need to get to is 120. So Rishi Sunak currently just 19 off that. And you can see, as further candidates drop off from Monday onwards, you can see Rishi Sunak now having a very good chance. He's still got momentum. He put on a decent number of MPs. You can still see him getting over the line. But the question, I think at the moment, from today's results, is who goes into the final round with Rishi Sunak. And looking at the results, yes, Liz Truss put on 14, but you have to see that 64 figure is a long way short of what the ultimate goal needs to be going. Liz Truss needs 56 more MPs to back her. And I know that the Liz Truss campaign team believe that they'll pick up many of the 27 that backed Suella Braverman, who went out today. I think the overwhelming majority of that 27 will just flip straight into the Liz Truss column. But beyond that, we've still got a further, basically a further 29 to find. And whilst the Liz Truss camp say they think that they can get a lot of that from Kemi Badenoch's current supporters, it's far less clear to me that group won't split many ways. And in the meantime, Penny Morton is just putting on a proportion of the votes higher than Liz Truss is putting on at the moment. And in that gap, it just could be that Penny Morton gets over the line, and we get what the right of the Conservative Party fears, which is a Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt final 2.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And I do wonder how the different kind of machinations, if you like, the different stages of the race could impact the final outcome, because we are starting to see attacks coming at the people who are perceived to be the front runners, and those are the 2 people, Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, and things are getting quite vicious in the briefing wars.
Absolutely. I think the attacks have come in 2 phases. Phase 1 really was a stop Rishi phase. The attacks on Rishi Sunak as somebody who effectively brought down Boris Johnson, who's something of a traitor, who wasn't a low-tax Conservative, who was blocking Brexit gains when he was Chancellor inside the Treasury. And that felt like it lasted from about Friday to about yesterday. Then the YouGov poll of Tory members, which put Penny Mordaunt out in front, sort of changed everything. And then the most aggressive briefing war that we were conscious of was the Stop Penny campaign. Now that's been happening not below the surface, but actually remarkably in public. David Frost, Lord Frost, the former Brexit negotiator for Boris Johnson, coming out saying that Penny Mordaunt didn't have the forensic qualities that he would have wanted to be Prime Minister. She was his deputy in the Cabinet Office when Lord Frost was doing the Brexit negotiations. She said that he just wasn't present at one point. She was going missing. And then that was echoed by some other supporters of Boris Johnson, but also the Cabinet member that you had on barely 20-30 minutes ago, Simon Clarke, Chief Secretary of the Treasury, a Liz Truss backer, going in full, both feet, both a double-footed tackle, if that's the phrase, not very good at sport, double-footed tackle, I believe. Isn't that impossible? Anyway, he went in quite hard on Suella. Two-footed tackle, thank you. In on Penny Mordaunt, live on air with you. And I think that kind of rancour that we're seeing from a right who are unafraid to use some fairly ballsy tactics when it comes to confronting their opponents reflects the nervousness at the lack of somebody who they regard as one of them making the final 2 and therefore becoming the next Prime Minister.
Fascinating stuff. I really enjoyed the football analogy there, Sam. Very impressive there. Stay there. I just want to have a quick look at that graphic again, because we can see there Rishi Sunak topping the leadership poll after today's vote, 101. So he did cross that magic 100 line that some people were looking out for, Sam included, to show that he was picking up support. Penny Mordaunt has now on 83 votes in the second round. She put on the most votes compared to last time. Liz Truss also picking up support. She is on 64. That was up from 50 last time round. Kemi Badenoch, worth keeping an eye on Kemi Badenoch. She put on 9 votes to 49. So again, someone who's having a very good campaign? Could she have an eye on a good cabinet role, whoever is elected leader? And then we come to the people who've been losing support, so the people whose momentum is going out of their campaign. Tom Tugendhat, he got 32 votes. He's still in the contest, but he is dropping support compared to last time round. And Suella Braverman, she's out after just picking up 27 votes. So that's under the threshold of 30 that she needed to progress last time round. She's down 5 votes. Let's bring Sam Coates back in now, shall we? We've been talking a lot about that all-important word, momentum. How important is it?
Incredibly important, because if there is a sense amongst MPs that there are doubts about a candidate, then you can find Tory MPs perhaps pledge support publicly, starting to pull back. Vicious, I thought, some of those results. 2 candidates actually going backwards in the number of support that they've got, including one that's still in the race. It's rather cruel of you to ask Anne-Marie Trevelyan backing Tom Tugendhat, who's got momentum in this race. It's very hard to answer that your candidate has when the number of votes that they're getting is going down. She made a valiant effort, wasn't quite able to identify anybody, I thought. But that's the problem. People are having to make very quick judgments about a very fundamental question which will determine the future direction of this country at breakneck speed. And I think what's going to happen over the next 3-4 days is essentially a process of journalists going through the backgrounds of the various remaining candidates, MPs making a bit more of a considered argument, and also MPs thinking about their own futures. Because if you back a winner publicly, you've got a greater chance of becoming maybe a minister in their government than you otherwise would do if you end up backing the wrong person. And these things don't get forgotten. No,
they certainly don't. Thank you very much, Sam Coates. Well, let's go now, shall we, to somebody who has seen a few leadership contests. I'm very interested to get his thoughts on this one. We can talk now to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who's just over the road from us in Portcullis House. And John, it feels very unpredictable, even after 2 rounds of voting.
Well, there was no big winner from that round, was there? If you look at the numbers, and I'm sure you've talked about them already, but I mean, I was in the room for the result and then in the corridor where the spokesman for the various candidates were spinning, and I've actually just been on the terrace talking to some Conservative MPs as well. But it was interesting. I mean, Sunak is only up 13, Mordaunt is up 16, and Truss is up 14. So there's no real big gainer there. And of course, Tugendhat, who some MPs thought might drop out if he did not improve on his vote first time. Well, of course, his vote's down 5, and of course, Suella Braverman's vote was down. Now, so after the announcement, out in the corridor, you'll be familiar with that narrow corridor outside the committee rooms, committee room 14. First, we had Simon Clarke. I think you may have just interviewed Sophie, I'm not sure. But he was spinning for Liz Truss, and he was saying that this was always a difficult round for Liz. There wasn't a very large pool to fish in. And one Tory MP whose predictions have been very good, not any of the ones we've named, whose predictions have been good throughout this contest, is saying now could be an all-women final. Now, another Tory MP I've spoken to, the other person spinning, incidentally, in the corridor was Mark Harper for Rishi Sunak, denying all those claims about lending votes and so on. And if you look at the numbers, actually, if Mr Sunak's only up 13, well, and given the other numbers, it's probably right. Perhaps not. I think it's probably a bit early for all that sort of thing, trying to keep one or other candidate out. But I was talking to an influential Tory MP who said to me just now, deals need to be done over the weekend. I think that's something that Sam Coates was alluding to a moment or two ago. I've heard that from a senior MP just now. Braverman and Badenoch can be the queen maker. We don't often talk about a queen maker, do we? It's normally king maker. For Truss or Mordaunt. It would require Truss or Mordaunt to toughen their stance on getting out of the European Court of Human Rights, which would go down very well with the membership. And the other point that particular MP was saying to me, the principled, in inverted commas, careerists supporting Rishi Sunak must be starting to wonder if they're backing the right horse or if they've hitched their wagons to the right wagon train. Oh dear, some dreadful mixed metaphors there, but never mind. And my MP, who's a good predictor of these things, said the only reason for Tom Tugendhat to carry on and go into the next contest is that he'll then get to see another set of results that will give him a better indicator as to who to throw his weight behind when he gets kicked out. And he looks like the next one to get kicked out, as one MP put it to me. But it's interesting now. We're sort of at the halfway stage, aren't we, of the MPs voting? Or perhaps, yeah, I think we probably are at the halfway stage. And clearly everybody's now talking about deals. And intriguingly, there are doubts now amongst MPs about Rishi Sunak, whether he will make the final two. That is new, because of course there were some MPs saying that really Rishi Sunak needed to be up to 120 or so in this round to get a commanding lead. He's not. He's only just scraped into three figures, 101. And now it is fair to say, and it's been said here already by senior MPs, that it could be Truss versus Mordaunt in the final two that go to the members, and not Rishi Sunak and one of Liz Truss or Penny Mordaunt. So that's what MPs are saying, both here in this part of Parliament and also in the corridors and out in the sunshine on the terrace. I bet you're dead jealous you've not been out there, Sophie. But the prospect now of Truss versus Mordaunt in the runoff of the vote of party members is now being talked about by MPs, and some are suggesting that Rishi Sunak might not make the final two.
There you go. John, I am a bit jealous, actually, of you soaking up the sunshine while also, of course, having all those conversations with MPs, as I know that you are. John Craig there talking about how the tone of the debate and who could even be in that final two is now starting to change. Could it be that Rishi Sunak doesn't make the final cut? He still certainly would be the favourite to do so. He managed to pick up 101 MPs today. But now there is perhaps some speculation that the people with momentum, Penny Mordaunt getting to 83, putting on the most votes as last time. Liz Truss on 64, perhaps a slower start than she expected, but could she benefit from Suella Braverman being out of the contest? All to play for after the second ballot of Conservative Party MPs before it goes over to the members. More coverage coming up in just a few moments' time.